Why would you pay for a calorie and fitness tracker when I'm going to show you how to make one for free in Excel? Not only is this one free, but it's also completely customizable to fit your needs. You're going to be able to type in any food or homemade meal that you make and have the calories, proteins, carbs, or whatever the hell you want appear automatically. We're going to track your weight, track your exercise, track your goals, tell you how many calories you've had each day, how many you have remaining, and so much more. And best of all, like I said, I'm going to teach you how to do this completely for free in Excel. So to make this as authentic as possible, I am starting out with a completely blank Excel worksheet, and you should do the same. The first thing that I'm going to have you do is create 3 tabs on the bottom, and we're going to do this by clicking the little plus sign next to where it says Sheet 1. I'm going to click it once, another one appears, click it twice, and a third sheet appears, and that's a good place for us to start. Now these 3 sheets, I don't just want them called Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3. We want to call them something different. And there's 2 ways to change the name of a sheet. You can double click into it and you'll be able to enter kind of a typing mode where you can write anything you want. Or if that isn't working for some reason, you can go ahead and right click on any 3 of the names. You can see that rename is an option. I'm going to click that. And then again, you enter that typing mode and you can start to type whatever you want to name them. For our first tab, we're going to call it Fitness Overview. I'm going to right click on the next one, go to rename. And for the second tab, we're going to call it Meal Tracker. And on my third tab, we're going to call it Meal Library. And of course, you can name them whatever you want, but if you're going to be following along in this tutorial, it makes sense to name them what I'm naming them. Now down below, you can see that the sheet that's highlighted is Meal Library. And I can tell that it's highlighted because it's a little bit more light than the other tabs. And the first place that we actually want to start is the Meal Tracker tab. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And you can see when I clicked on it, it also became kind of highlighted. So I know that I'm now operating in the Meal Tracker space. Now in this Meal Tracker tab, this is ultimately going to be where we go in, we type out the name of a meal, and then all of the calories and all of the information we're going to have automatically appear. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of label the columns that we want to put data into. So we're going to type out in column A, date. In column B, we're going to type food. In column C, I'm going to type the calories, and then carbs, protein, and E. Now there's technically nothing wrong with how the columns are labeled, but I want to make them a little bit bigger so it's easier to look at. I'm going to click the 1 next to date so that it highlights the entire row 1. And up where it says the font size, this little A with the arrow pointed up next to it, I'm going to click a couple of times to get them a little bit bigger and a little bit nicer looking. When I did that, of course, the columns are too small to see everything. And a quick trick that you can do is if you click on the little space between the A and the 1 to highlight everything, I can then adjust the columns to any size I want. And the advantage of doing it this way when everything is highlighted is that all of the cells in the spreadsheet are going to format to that same size. So right now I know that A, B, C, D, and E are all the exact same size. There's really no advantage to that besides I think it looks way better. I'm going to make it bold and I'm going to click underline. And the last thing that I want to do is add some color to my spreadsheet. Now instead of just creating colors at random, I'm going to choose 2 colors for this entire tutorial. I'm going to make a gray section, and what that means is that we only need to enter information 1 time, or that the data is automatically going to populate in that space, or I'm going to make blue columns, and that means that it's going to be an area of the spreadsheet that we're going to continually enter data. So for example, of course, we're going to need to go in and type out what we ate each day, so that's going to be a blue area. The good news is when you look at everything that we've written down here, the only thing that we're going to need to enter day by day is just the date and the food that we ate. So I'm going to go ahead. I highlighted A through B by holding down and dragging my mouse on both of them. And like I said, we're going to make it blue. I'm going to make the top cells a little bit darker blue just so it looks good. And then I'm going to add some borders just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Calories, carbs, and proteins, I want to make a function that is going to automatically populate, so we only need to do it 1 time. And for that reason, I'm going to label them gray. Same as before, I'll make the top a little bit darker so it looks cleaner. And I really think that cell borders make everything just look a little bit nicer. Now, like I said, the ultimate goal of what we're going for here is that we're going to go into our spreadsheet. We're going to type the date. So I'll just say 1/1/2023 because that's when everybody starts the diet, right? I want to be able to type in something like chili. And then when I do that, I want the calories, the carbs, and the protein to automatically appear. And we're going to be able to get the spreadsheet to do that. But in order for it to automatically appear every time that we type it in, we need to tell Excel only one time how many calories, carbs, and protein chili has. Where we're going to store that information is in the meal library tab. So you can think of it as the area of the spreadsheet that has the one-time information on every kind of food item. Down below, same as before, I'm going to click in the meal library, and of course everything is blank right now. I'm going to make the cells a little bit bigger so it's easier to see the same way that we did before. And this time I really only need 4 columns. We're going to go through and we're going to label A, food, B, I'm going to call calories, C, we're going to go with carbs, and then D is protein. Just a side note, these are the kind of generic health things that I decided to make the tutorial on. If you wanted to add a column that said like sugar or maybe a certain vitamin, you certainly could, and you could either put it in place of, B, C, or D, or you can add it into E, F, G indefinitely. So if you want more information for each food item, feel free to add it at any time. This is completely optional, but just to make this a little bit easier to look at, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger. But if you don't want to do that in your spreadsheet, that's completely okay. We're going to make it bold, underlines, and then I'm going to add some color again. But again, this is completely optional. It's not going to make the spreadsheet any better or any worse. And the spreadsheet looks good now. So everything we do in this library, we only need to do one time. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in a couple of different foods that I know that I'm going to be eating in the next couple of weeks. I've added just 5 to start. We're going to build the spreadsheet in a way that we can add more items as the year goes on. So don't feel like you need to do everything right now. You can add, you can subtract, you can adjust too as you go on throughout the year and as you want to change certain meals in your life. The only really important thing is that you just list out every item one time. There's no need to do a different apple. And if you had a situation where you had 2 variety of apples, all you need to do is label them more specifically. So you could say one is Granny Smith and one is just a red apple. Once you have your items typed out, you just need to enter the calories, carbs, protein, or whatever you put, again, just one time. And for this tutorial, I think that 5 items is a good place to start. Now that that's filled out, we're going to go back to the meal tracker and we're going to start to actually do some really cool Excel magic to make this work automatically. So we know ultimately, like we said, we're going to go in, we're going to type 1/1/2023. We're going to say that we ate chili and we want the calories, the carbs, and the protein to appear automatically. The function that's going to make those appear automatically is known as an XLOOKUP. So right now I'm inside of cell C2, the first row where it's underneath calories. And we're going to start by typing equals XLOOKUP. Now, if this part of the video goes a little bit fast for you, I did make an entire video just on XLOOKUPs that might be helpful to watch. But I think that if you just follow step by step, you should be able to get the proper thing to appear, and it should make sense. But check out that video if you need a little bit of extra help, or just put a question in the comments below. So we've started with equals XLOOKUP and with an open parentheses, and the first thing that we need to click is the lookup value. And for the lookup value, we're going to click where it currently says chili, so B2. Once we have B2 highlighted, we're going to click comma again, and then it switches to the lookup array. And what this is this is Excel asking you, where do you want me to look for the word chili? The answer to that question is inside of the library. So right after the comma, you can see that the XLOOKUP is still engaged. We're going to click on the meal library tab. Even though we've switched tabs or switched sheets right now, we're still typing out that same XLOOKUP function. And the reason that I can tell that is because there's still the same data in the formula tab up top. For the lookup array, the next thing we want to click is the A up top, because this is where we're going to write the food name. So we want Excel to look for the food name inside of column A. Once that's highlighted, type comma. And if you take a look at the formula bar up top, this is what your formula should look like so far. The next thing that the XLOOKUP asks for is the last thing that we need to put into this one, and that's the return array. This is Excel saying, okay, if I find that word in B2 and I look for it in this column here, what do you want me to return? And the answer to that question, since we started this function inside of the calories comma, is that we want it to return the number of calories, of course. So in the same tab here, we're still in the meal library tab. I'm just going to click on the B so that it highlights all of column B. Once that's complete, I don't need any additional data to make the function work. So I can just put a parentheses, click enter, and you can see now that the calorie should have appeared that I put associated with that item. Now maybe you put something different like soda and it's returning the calories for soda. But at this point in the tutorial, you should have an item in the meal library that has got an amount of calories listed, carbs, and protein. We should have an XLOOKUP that's referencing what you wrote down in B2, and it should be returning the calories that you put in the meal library. Now we're going to move on to carbs and protein, and it's going to be super similar, but I'm going to go through it a little bit quicker since we know what we're doing. So we're doing equals XLOOKUP again with an open parentheses. Again, I wanted to look for the B2 because that's where I'm going to type my item. Put a comma. I want it to look in column A again, of course, comma. But this time, instead of putting B to return calories, all I need to do is click the C this time because I want it to return carbs. Close the parentheses, click enter, and it's now saying 40 carbs. Last thing we're going to do is protein, XLOOKUP, look up B2, look for it in AA, comma, return the protein for me, enter. And now when I type in chili, I'm getting the calories, the carbs, and the protein automatically. Now you might be a little bit panicked right now and think, holy shit, that was the farthest thing from automatic I've ever seen in my life. And luckily for you, we don't need to do this every single time because that was painful. What I want you to do now is we've got 3 cells with 3 XLOOKUPs. I'm going to highlight from C2 over to E2 so that all of them are highlighted. And then I'm going to move my cursor to the bottom right of that highlighted area. And you can see that it changes from maybe kind of like a big white T to kind of like a black filled in T. And once it's turned to that black filled in T, I'm going to hold down on my cursor and I'm going to drag down the XLOOKUPs. And you can see that the rows on the side are going down. That shows that obviously I'm dragging it super far. Now it doesn't matter too much how far you go, but to make it clean, I just went to 1,000. And everywhere I dragged the formula down, I got a bunch of zeros, which means nothing right now, but that's good. And now I just want to test something out to make sure that everything is working properly. You know that I put chili as an item. It looks like I also put apple. I'm just going to put in some fake data to see if our function is working properly. I'm going to say that it's now the 2nd of 2023. And I'm going to eat just an apple. And when I click enter on the apple, you can see that all of the information automatically populated. I'll zoom in a little bit to make it easier to look at. One more time, I'm going to do 1, 2, 2023 again. I saw that there was an orange in my library. I'm going to click enter, and now the calories, carbs, and protein have automatically calculated. And if you think about it, just right now, this is huge, and this is crazy good progress because you've taken maybe 30 to 50% of what these fitness apps are doing for you, and you've made it in Excel in a way that you can customize. You're now in a position to add any sort of family, home-cooked meal, or custom recipe that you have, type the calories, carbs, and protein one time, and then be able to just enter what you ate that day and have the information automatically appear. And in addition to that, you could put sugars or any other sort of parameter in here in the same library. You could put the same column then in the meal tracker and have that automatically appear. So that's great progress for the small amount of time that we've spent inside of Excel. We've made great progress so far, but there's a lot that we're going to keep adding to make this even more robust. So right now in current state, we can put it in, we see that it automatically appears and that's great, but we're going to get this spreadsheet to the point in this tutorial where we can also have calorie goals, carbs goals, and protein goals, and then we're going to have Excel kind of track that for us to see if we're meeting those goals or if we're not meeting those goals automatically. So we're going to get to the point where, you can see that I ate 2 items on January 2nd. It's going to add those together. It's going to say, hey, we've got a 200 calorie goal. Are we above or below that? So the next step that I want to do is kind of move towards that goal that I just talked about. I'm still in the meal tracker tab, of course. Next to where I put protein, I'm going to type out calorie goal. Took a second to make it colored nice again, and now we're good to go. And where it says calorie goal, I want to type out what my calorie goal is every single day. So this could fluctuate if you've got a certain diet or a certain plan. But in my example here, let's just say that I want to have 1,500 calories every single day. So all I need to do if that's my case is I need to type in 1,500. And then if I double click where the cursor changes to that same symbol as before, it's going to automatically populate that 1,500 down to the bottom of where I dragged my data. And again, by putting a 1,500 here, it just means that my daily goal is to just meet 1,500 calories. So now we're going to make a cool graph to track our progress and kind of see if we've met that goal. To do this, we're going to use something called a pivot chart. The first step that we need to do is I'm going to click in between the A and the 1 again to that kind of half square in between the two to have everything highlighted. I'm going to go to the Insert tab up top of my spreadsheet, and where it says Pivot Chart, I'm going to click right above it on more of the icon and not the word. This is the default that appears, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK. And at this point, you should have just kind of a blank, disgusting looking box like I have here. If you're not familiar with pivot charts, they're pretty simple once you get the hang of them. I've got a top area up here that lists every single column that we've created. And all we need to do is take these columns and drag them into one of these 4 buckets below. So to start, I'm going to move my cursor over date. I'm going to hold down on my cursor and then I'm going to drag it until I get to the axis bucket. And once I'm over that axis bucket, I just need to let go. I'm going to take calorie and I'm going to drag it down into the values bucket. And then the final thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the calorie goal and I'm going to also drag it into that values bucket. And I'm going to put it below where the sum of calorie is that I just placed. So at this point, my chart looks like this, and yours should look fairly similar. If it looks a little bit different, it might be because you entered different food. So Excel is kind of calculating the totals a little bit different. So looking down in my values bucket right now, it says sum of calorie and then sum of calorie goal. And where it says sum of calorie goal, there's a little drop down arrow, and I actually want to click on that super quick. And the bottom field that appears there is value field settings. And I'm going to have us click on that right now. This little box should appear, and you can see that it defaulted to sum. I'm going to have you actually click on average and then click OK. And now your chart should be converted to this, which probably doesn't look much better, but I promise you we're getting closer to something that doesn't look like garbage. Now I'm just going to right click onto the graph anywhere, and I'm going to scroll down to change chart type. Once that's clicked, I've got all these different options of what I want my chart to look at, but what we're going to click on is combo, which is the bottom one in my screen. My chart defaults to having the sum of calorie be a clustered column, you can see here, and then the average of calorie goal as a line. And that's how I want it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK here. And now my graph looks something like this. Now I find this a little bit hard to look at, but it's going to make more sense if we clean it up a little bit. The first thing that I want to do is you can see that a blank space is pulling in here. So I'm going to click date on the bottom left of my graph. You can see that 1/1, 1/2, where I entered the 2 dates that I ate food are currently in here. And I want to get rid of where it says blank because I just find that distracting. So I'm going to uncheck that box. Everything else is checked, and then I'm going to click OK. On the top right of this graph here, you can see this little green plus sign. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click on axis titles and chart titles. I'm going to make the chart a little bit bigger so it's easy to look at. And then I want to relabel the chart title and then the axis titles. So I just need to click where the text appears, and then automatically the text cursor opens up, and then you can just highlight your text and label it whatever you want. Now, ultimately, what we're going to make here is a daily calorie tracker. So I'm going to label it just that. When you're done labeling your chart, you can just click off. And then I'm going to click into both axes to label these as well. The y-axis, I'm going to label daily calories. And then the x-axis down below, I'm just going to label dates. And this is, of course, pretty cosmetic. It doesn't really affect what your data is actually presenting, but I find it a lot easier to look at. Now, anytime I do something new in Excel, I always like to go back and I like to just make sure that it's working before I progress any further so that I can fix problems as early as they occur. So right now within my spreadsheet, you can see that it's saying that on 1-1, I had 512 calories, and on 1-2, I had 115. And just to prove a concept, I want to see if it automatically updates when I say that I actually ate more on 1-2. Let's see if we can get it above that 115. So I'm going to go into my meal tracker. I'm going to type in 1-2 a couple times. And then I'm going to go to my meal library to see what I typed in. And French fries have got a lot of calories and chili has a lot of calories. So I'm just going to type in French fries super quick, click enter, and I'll say chili, because I know that that's going to add a lot of calories. I'm going to go back to my chart, which Excel has labeled automatically as sheet 4. And it looks like it's still pulling 115, which might appear to be a problem at first, but this is about the easiest problem in the world, and especially in Excel, to fix. If you right-click anywhere on your chart, you can see that the top thing that appears is refresh data. I'm going to click that once. And then automatically it refreshed everywhere that it's pulling from. So it appears that that went up when I click refresh, which is great. I want to just trial one more thing, and I want to say, is it going to pull in the new data if I add a couple more dates? Because right now, obviously, it's just pulling the 2 days. I want to make sure that it doesn't break when I wake up tomorrow. So I'm going to say 1/3/2023. I'll say 1/4/2023, and then we'll do just 1/5/2023. And every single day we'll say that I was feeling really healthy or really unhealthy, depending on how you look at it. And I just had 1 orange every single day. Going back to my chart, it looks like it didn't update. This time when I click refresh data, it still isn't updating. But the reason this time why it isn't updating is because if I click into the date area down below, you can see that it didn't select the dates this time. So maybe to make this automatically update and be a little bit easier, I'm just going to click the select all button. It's going to pull in the blank, but honestly, that might be better than needing to click the new dates each day as they appear. So from here, once everything's selected, I click OK. And I don't remember exactly what the calories were at, but I know that they were all the same. And it looks like 1/3, 1/4, and 1/5. I ate all the same thing, and it is pulling that in. Okay, I lied. The blank space is driving me nuts. I'm just going to unclick that for the sake of this tutorial to make everything look nice. Now we can go in every single day. We can see where we're at calorically, and we can see if we went over or under our calories. And through the power of editing, let's just pretend that on 1/4 we really chonked out and ate a lot. And here you have it. You can now clearly see what days you went over your calories and what days you were within your goal. One last thing I should tell you. If you really want to deck out how your chart looks, if you click Pivot Chart Design up top here, you get a bunch of awesome options that you can just click on, and they're kind of pre-made and look pretty cool. So I'll just click on this darker one. I think it looks nice and it has a good, clean look. So we've made great progress. We've got a meal tracker, we've got a meal library that we understand, and now we've got a really cool chart that we're going to be able to use the entire year to see if we're under or below our target. Now, obviously, we just did this for calories. We could do this for protein, we could do this for sugar or whatever, but we're going to get to the point where we've got a million charts on a million different sheets down below. And there's a way that we can kind of clean up our spreadsheet to make it a little bit easier to look at. So at the very beginning of the tutorial, I asked you to make a fitness overview sheet. And the reason why I did that is I kind of wanted to make a home page where we log into Excel, we open it up, and then all of our trackers appear on one nice tab so that we don't need to click between 15 different things to see where we're at. So all I really want to do here is take this chart and I want to move it to the Fitness Overview tab. To do that, you can just right click anywhere on your chart. Towards the middle, you can see that you've got the option to move chart. I'm going to click on that. And this here is asking you, where do you want the chart moved to? So it defaulted to the tab that we're currently in. I'm just going to click this drop down and we want to move it to the Fitness Overview page. So I'm going to click that one and then I'm going to click OK. And now on my Fitness Overview page, I've got a really good looking chart. And on sheet 4, which is where the chart previously was, I've just got the information pulling in. This step is again optional, but because sheet 4 I'm not really going to be looking at, I'm going to right click on the sheet and I'm going to click hide down below, and that's going to get rid of it. So I don't need to see it anymore. Now that data is still there. It's still pulling in. And if I were to right click any of the 3 tabs that remain and click unhide, it's going to appear again. But for the sake of making our spreadsheet really nice to look at, we're just going to hide it here. So we've made some crazy good progress and we're getting close to the end of the first phase of this tutorial, but there's still a couple of really important things that we can add here that is not going to take a lot of time. I think that it'd be really cool if when we log into our spreadsheet or when we open up our spreadsheet, we're able to see what the current date is and how many calories we're at for the day so that we've got a good idea of, okay, how am I doing today and how many calories do I have left? And to do that, we can just write a couple of simple functions up top here. So I'm going to move my chart just a little bit towards the bottom so that I've got room in cells, let's just say A1 to A4. I'm going to zoom in a bit so it's a little bit easier to look at. And here I'm going to type today because we want to know what day it is. I want to know what our calorie target of the day is. I want to know how many calories we consumed. And let's find out how many calories we have remaining. I'm going to make the column a little bit bigger. I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger. I'm going to add some borders. And of course, I'm going to add just a little bit of color so it's nicer to look at. And just so you know, everything that we're going to write here, we're only going to need to do one time when we're setting up the spreadsheet. It's going to automatically populate every day that you log into this. So the first thing that we want is to know what today is. And that is probably the world's easiest Excel function. I'm going to double click into B1 so that I'm in this cell next to where it says today. I'm going to type equals today, and then I'm going to do an open and close parentheses with nothing inside of it. From here, I click enter, and you can see that the day that I'm filming this tutorial, it is currently 12/2. I'm going to highlight B1 to B4. I'm going to center the information by clicking this area, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so it's nicer to look at. Next thing that I want to know is what the calorie target for today is. And to do that, we're going to do an XLOOKUP again, but it's just going to be a little bit different from before. So right now I'm in cell B2. I double clicked in so that I can type, and I'm going to do equals XLOOKUP with an open parentheses. From here, what I wanted to actually look up is what the current date is. So to do that, because B1 automatically updates, I know that if B2 is looking at B1, it's always going to give us the most up-to-date current calorie. That was a long-winded way of saying that you should click B1 for the lookup value and then type comma. Where you want it to look for B1 is we're going to click over to the meal tracker. I'm going to highlight again all of column A, so I'm just going to click on A. I'm going to type comma, and this time what we want it to return is not the calories, not the carbs, not the protein. We actually want it to return the calorie goal. So I'm just going to click on column F this time. After F, before you'll remember that we closed the parentheses and clicked enter, I'm actually going to type 2 commas and then I'm going to put a -1. You can watch my tutorial on the topic if you want to learn more, but long story short, we do this because we can put 1500 multiple times on multiple dates. So if there was a contradiction where, let's just say that the calorie goal was different on this January 2nd date versus this January 2nd date, putting a -1 tells Excel to just look for the first time that it sees January 2nd and just roll with that. So once I have typed out what the function looks like up top here, we just need to close the parentheses and then click enter. And you can see this time that a hashtag NA error has appeared. And you might be thinking to yourself, why is this happening? It's because if you're paying really close attention, we haven't set a calorie goal for 12/2 of 2022, right? All of the data and all of the goals that we put into our meal tracker started in 2023. So just to make sure we're not crazy, let's just say that it's 12/2, 2022, and let's just say that I had an orange and I already put that the calories are at 1500 for the goal. Back at the fitness overview, now when it looks for that date, it sees the 1500 as the calorie goal. For calories consumed, we're going to use something different from a lookup function, so that's exciting. Inside of cell B3, I'm going to type equals Sumif with an open parentheses. And of course, a sum function tells Excel to add a bunch of stuff, but a SUMIF function tells Excel add this stuff only if a certain parameter is met. And in our case, we want that parameter to be, is it today? So the first thing that we need to do after the parentheses is open is go into the meal tracker tab again. And where it's asking for the range, I'm just going to click on column A again. I'm going to type a comma, and then I'm going to click back into the fitness overview tab. Once I'm in this tab, I'm going to click on B1, which is where the current date is appearing right now. And I'm going to click comma again. And for the final thing that it's looking for, which is called the sum range, one last time, we're going to go into the meal tracker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click column C. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm looking up how many calories I have left today. And I want to click on the column that has the calorie information specifically. I'm going to close the parentheses after my function looks like what I have written up here in the formula bar. I'm going to click enter. And you can see that on this day right now, it's returning 60. And just to recap, the reason that it's doing that is it's right now pulling that it's December 2nd. And within my meal tracker tab, the only thing that I wrote down that I ate on December 2nd is an orange, which I've got as 60 calories. So everything is pulling correctly right now, it seems. Luckily for us, calories remaining is going to be the easiest function that we do. I'm inside of cell B4 right now. I'm typing equals, and all we need to do is click on cell B2, which is the target for the day, and then click minus how many we consumed. So it's literally just equals B2 minus B3. Click enter, and you can see now that I've got about 1400 calories left for the day. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to move my really cool chart up here. I'm going to resize the chart so that it kind of fits in the screen better. And now when I log in the new year, I can go in, I can see what the current date is, what my calorie target for the day is, how many I've consumed, how many is remaining, and then maybe what the last week has looked like. So we've got all of this great information related to diet, and we kind of focused on calories specifically. But we're going to take this even further to meet our fitness goals. In the next video, we're going to add functions that allow us to track exercise. It's going to take the calories that we burned working out and subtract it from what we've ate that day in order to give us an accurate calorie count. If you're like most people, you're also going to want a weigh-in tracker to see how much you weigh and how much you've lost or gained over time. We're going to add that in here as well, and we're going to put it in this overview tab so that we can see where our weight is and if we're meeting those goals. Make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the completion of the fitness tracker. This is the first video in the series, and it's going to take a few to get this made, and every like and subscription helps me a lot. Thanks for watching.